employers have the obligation under the OH&S Act to maintain a safe workplace as reasonably as practical as possible. So that's where you start.
Medicinal cannabis should be treated as any other substance that, even if taken legitimately, might impact on the safety of a workplace. The use of medicinal cannabis cannot be ignored because of physiological effects that might impact safety. Therefore, if identified, employers must be obligated to investigate the potential effect on safety and take appropriate steps to ensure the safety of the workplace.
For workplaces such as ours, and we think more broadly, that have a necessity to randomly or in a targeted way test workers, we think consideration has to be given to the growing use of medicinal cannabis as a legitimate form of therapy for people with chronic illness in our community. We think a very empathetic response is one that is required, and indeed even in industries, and policing being one, heavy industry would be another, where there are strong safety concerns that would require workplaces to be free of drug and alcohol, an empathetic response having regard for the irrefutable medical evidence that supports the growing use of medicinal cannabis in medicine is something that is required.
Some policies go as far as to say if you get tested and haven't disclosed that you're on a drug which is legal, which is not of impairment in nature, that they can terminate your employment.
It needs to be treated differently to other prescribed medications. So if cannabis is prescribed, it needs to be treated differently to other prescribed medications, primarily for the reason that there is no globally accepted definition of impairment associated with medicinal cannabis and no agreement on how to measure its occurrence.
I think in the issue of medicinal cannabis, we have the road rules which say you can't have THC in your body and drive. So I think it's reasonable for employers to also say, if the road rules say you can't drive with THC and we've got people doing high-risk work, then that is an issue.
Despite the recommendations from the National Centre for Education and Training on Addiction that workplace drug testing should target safety-sensitive roles, it's clear from the evidence before you that it's been expanded to everything from retail music shops to rail. And indeed, you heard that testing companies are advocating for mandatory testing in all workplaces because of assumed risks arising from people who use alcohol and other drugs, or AOD, making decisions. Yet our industrial frameworks are not up to date with current drug laws, and as a result, testing can lead to punitive responses such as termination, forced leave, targeting of older workers, and influencing workers to forego medication. And there isn't sufficient evidence that testing reduces workplace injury, except to some degree in the transportation sector.
When there's punitive approaches taken, people engage in behaviours to try and avoid those punitive responses, and often those behaviours can be, as a result, more harmful. So in the case you're describing, someone wants to avoid THC detection and uses a drug that might be shorter acting but might have other consequences.